Good afternoon, everyone. I'm from Changjiang Security. I'm an analyst from the materials industry. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share with you from the downstream and how do we look at the platinum demand. And from the fiberglass industry, I'm going to share my research in three perspectives. The first one is that platinum demand and from the fiberglass industry, the platinum in the glass fiber industry, from the short-term changes in terms of supply or on the long term, how industry go. I'm going to share with you more details about the short-term and the long-term demand. First of all, have a look of the platinum leakage placement for glass fiber production. So because the glass fiber production process, because by relying on different kind of stones and after getting melted and in the furnace and after drying, so this is kind of very complete process. And at the stretching and the stage, of course, and this session is very important, especially when the temperature of the liquid is over 1000 degrees Celsius, so that's why there's high demand and of the plate.
So in the past several years, if we look at the trend of the bushings or the leakage platform, we found that there are many pores are used and the diameters become smaller and a higher resistance to temperature with constant structure and design optimization. And because the rhodium powders has become more expensive, therefore people are seeking less consumption of rhodium or RO in the bushings. And now we have seen that there are new plate coming to the market that is totally free of RO utilization. And of course, in the production cycle, the consumption of rhodium are twofold. First of all, as long as there is a production capacity, there is a capex. So we have done a calculation, and so we found that the rhodium, if the annual output of 10,000 tons of glass fiber, it needs 12 platinum bushings, and the initial input include 8 kilograms of platinum block. So it takes like 30% to 40% of the total cost. That is why glass fiber is literally a heavy asset in the total production. And second reason is that the bushings is not long lasting. So every 8 months you need to replace it and to supplement new bushings. So hypothetically or theoretically, if an annual output of 10,000 tons of glass fiber is produced and the cost of production is 3,000, that means that the annual attrition rate is 6%. And of course, these figures are all from the market leading players. For the small players, the cost is even higher. And of course, we have our own data, but if we look at the glass fiber production and new production capacities in the market, and based on these dimensions, we have done a calculation. And every year, we have seen some new capacity emerging in the market. And after this calculation, we found that overall speaking, in the downstream market, the industry has taken a big share. The glass fiber literally takes 10% of the downstream share. One of the major characters is that it is subject to a major fluctuation of the market. Because the industry is literally operating under high temperature. You don't stop it without any reason, because that will affect the production seriously. So it's subject to a big fluctuation of the market, and it is not easily to stop. So But let me walk you through the logics behind this industry. And of course, supply and demand plays a big role in the market. And so the industry in general enjoys great potential to grow, but it grows by cyclics. And so we found that actually from the demand side, the demand is relatively decentralized, and there is a great potential to replace the steel, plate, plastic, and etc. in specific areas, and enjoy very good cost effectiveness, and so it is able to accelerate its substitution, so to push up the market ceiling. Therefore, simply put, the growth rate of this industry is almost double the global GDP growth rate last year. The industry growth rate is around 5%. And later on, I would like to give you a brief introduction of the overseas market. But in China, we still enjoy very resilient and strong growth potential. And also, in terms of the demand, so it is, but however, the supply is not that good. As I mentioned, that for 10,000 tons of production capacity, it usually requires about 120 million yuan of input. Therefore, the asset is really heavy. And the second, since it requires a continuous production without stop, therefore it is heavily cyclical. And so in terms of our forecast and analysis, we also factor in the global demand, the global market trend. We found that the cyclic is really strong from the demand side. In the past several years, the global demand growth rate is around or beyond 10%, of which Chinese production it used to be only 10% in the global total. And back then, we relied heavily on the export. But later on, we able to take around 30% of the global total. And thanks to our innovations and R&D capability in the past several years, we are able to rely totally on ourselves in terms of glass fiber supply. Of course, along the journey, it is not it is not a very smooth pathway. There are many twists and turns. For example, there are some tariff sanctions on us and etc. But in general, in 2014 and 2015, the demand is driven by wind power and also PV. And in 2020 and 2019, it is driven by the wind power industry as well as the COVID restriction ease. So that is why you see a big fluctuation there. In terms of a demand, on the right-hand side, every year we have seen 300,000 tons of new demand come to the market, but we need a cooling maintenance period. That is why you see the curve is really fluctuated, very steep. So in our analysis, we're able to conclude the competitive landscape of this industry. And we found that actually the major player and the small players, they are quite vary. There's a large gap between them. So as for now, from last year to this year, we found there's a great cooling period, maintenance period, and we found the demand growth. However, we found that demand growth rate is pretty stable. It's around 4.6% globally, or 4 to 6% globally. But the supply is pretty much driven by the demand and has a lot of fluctuation. But in general, the supply trend matches the demand trend. And this year, we found that the supply is quite short supplied in the market. And yesterday, we have seen many players as released their interim report. Shanghai, Jishan, a lot of players has reported profit loss. And so we have do a calculation and give a 2025 forecast. We expected that it will be slightly higher than that of this year, and we expected that will be 400,000 tons new suppliers to the market next year. And then, what is the growth potential of glass fiber? I think it will be very helpful for us to calculate the PGM trend. However, I would like to give you a long-term overview outlook so that you will have a better idea. As I said before, that glass fiber is a non-metal material. It's always trying to replace some traditional materials like traditional metals, plastics. That is why we always do a price comparison of glass fibers versus other materials. And we'll find one of the major changes that the glass fiber price hit its bottom. However, the metals that it was replaced by glass fibers like aluminum has peaked its price. And behind, I believe the driver is that the Chinese manufacturing industry has seen a huge investment. It is over invested, and the metal, because glass fiber in the past several years is over-invested, but for metal, their demand is quite rigid. It is always there. So they enjoy very good performance in recent years. But if the price gap is large enough, I believe the downstream demand of the metals will definitely be replaced by glass fibers and other new materials. That is why we made a lot of efforts on the downstream demand of glass fibers. So our efforts are twofold. First of all, we are looking at how not to be replaced by other materials. So we look at carbon fiber. So if you look at the developed countries like US and EU, look at their carbon fiber prices. Actually, the average price is around 90K, and glass fiber is around 10K. So even if the price is much lower than carbon fiber, it cannot replace the carbon fibers completely. And in China, the carbon fiber is around 70K, while glass fiber is around 5,000. So even if we were to the level of the overseas market, we still not achieve the critical point of the market. Of course, that is all about the cost effectiveness. And there's also other factors in play, like the offshore wind power installation is enjoy a very great applications in recent years, and certain kind of applications cannot be replaced by glass fibers. But if we look at the 5 year to 10 years now, it is hard to say that the glass fiber can replace the carbon fibers in an all-around way. But what we can replace them. So if we look at the US, look at the architecture building industry, as well as in Japan market, And of course, we look at the Japan market a lot recently. So the architecture application in the downstream market has taken a large share. Even if the real estate market is not that bullish, and the glass fibers do enjoy great demand. And so we are able to say that in China, the glass fiber has not yet reached its peak in terms of the demand. Now we are still in the replacement stages in the architecture building industry. Then where do we stand the most opportunities? Of course, the replacement of traditional metal. Here we look at the aluminum alloy at a 19K yuan. And we found that the gap only got larger in the last year. And for PV component industry, it still need time for them to realize certain replacement. But in the long run, we believe that if 50% of the alloy frame can be replaced by glass fibers, then the demand will be up by 1 million tons. So it is drivers from one single sectors.
Due to the time, I don't include the analysis of the under demand, but I can share with you about that orally. So we said the downstream of the glass fiber, 20% from automotive industry. So in this industry, there are a lot of the plastic and metal components, and you can see in recent years, and this applied widely because of the higher percentages of the new energy vehicles, like the batteries and the hood of the cover and of the batteries of new energy vehicles, and then there are higher demands in the performance of the glass fiber and due to craftsmanship, for example, LFT, like the long fiber. So then this long fiber can replace more materials. So that's why we do the analysis and with the glass fiber in the automotive industry. And by now, and the demand and of the automotive industry accounted for 25% of the total demand of the glass fibers. However, in the future, I believe it would be doubled. And in the other areas like the engineering, ocean engineering, and construction, I don't go to the details. So if we pay some attention to the downstream glass fiber on the long run, the glass fiber industry, and for now, this is about 1,000 tons in the following 10 to 20 years, I would say, and it can assure the 4 to 5 point an increase, so the total demand would be doubled. So then the demand would be 20 million tons. So we're going to share with you. We have shared with you about demand of glass fiber and analyze the total industry. And I wish so you can get some takeaways from my sharing. Thank you so much. That is the end of my report.